It is estimated that 80% of the population at one point in time will sustain or suffer some form of lower back pain. This is a very, very common condition. Now, this is also a condition that is worldwide. We do see ebbs and flows and pockets of more sedentary populations who are dealing with lower back pain, but yet then active populations such as more labor or agricultural communities that are dealing with a different type of back pain. And understanding how the back pain was generated is the most critical component of understanding the solution to lower back pain. So if you have dealt with lower back pain in the past, you're worried about your back, meaning you're apprehensive, you don't have confidence in your lower back, and or you're refraining from doing certain activities that you want to be able to do because of the lower back, and or you just sustained an injury, this is the video for you. Why? Because we will tell you how lower back pain occurs. We will show you the proper way to go through an evaluation to determine what is the actual cause of the pain that you're experiencing, as well as going through movement assessments and orthopedics assessments to determine if there's actually structural damage. Now, the movement assessment component takes into structural damage or not, but also are there movement attributes that might be contributing to overloading certain areas of the lower back, thus sensitizing and creating issues. Or is it just a technique flaw that is really more or less like your body's poking you and making a bruise in the same area? Regardless of what that is, that information needs to be first and foremost determined to lay out a plan and solution. More times than not, this is being mismanaged. This is looking at simply a structural approach, looking at x-rays and MRIs to determine what's causing pain, but then not doing anything about it. Rehab and physical therapy or chiropractic is suggested and referred to, but oftentimes those are, again, looking from a passive modality. Oh, these muscles are tight, we need to work on these muscles, or these muscles are weak, we need to work on these muscles, all without integrating and creating a foolproof solution. So if you want to deal with your back pain once and for all, if you need a solution, if you want a plan, this is the video for you. My name is Dr. Antonio with Loud Chiropractic and Coaching. Lower back pain is my specialty. I love helping individuals who are feeling defeated by lower back pain gain more confidence, gain more strength, gain more mobility, and ultimately gain more life in having a solution about how to actually deal with lower back pain. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If this is not you and you simply came across this because you are researching for a family member or friend, I appreciate you putting in the time and effort for them. Share this with them because, again, this is so prevalent and this, unfortunately, is being mismanaged across the board, and we want to be able to help you out. All right, so lower back pain. This is one of the most prevalent musculoskeletal conditions across the world. It's estimated, again, that at any given point in time, roughly a third of individuals are dealing with some sort of lower back pain. Now, with that, the majority of that lower back pain is almost always some sort of flexion intolerance, meaning when you bend forward, your body does not tolerate that well. Now, knowing this helps us really determine the best course of action for you. While flexing forward is normal and you should be able to do that, you should be able to do that pain-free and with enough stability that you're in control, there are times where we have to manage that. So a lot of our conversation, depending on how acute the individual is, will determine what the immediate course of action is, because first and foremost, our goal is to just help you get your pain down. Because if you're in pain, you're not able to do a lot of stuff as it is, and then you just get into that negative feedback, more pain, tighter, so on and so forth. So we need to break that cycle and understand what are your triggers that keep causing the pain that you're experiencing, and then we can mold in and figure out other things so that you can gain more confidence, more stability around the lower back, so on and so forth. So we have to first determine, though, is flexion intolerant what's bugging you? Now, more times than not, if you have a good clinician and they're asking the right questions, we're gonna know right off the bat, right? We can see it in how you move, we can see it in the description of what your symptoms are, but many times people are looking at a stagnant perspective of your pain, meaning they're taking an x-ray or an MRI to determine what the cause of pain is, when we have to look first and foremost functionally what's causing the triggers, because that will tell us the issues or the site of pain that we need to be more cautious of, but then also the area that we need to focus on and strengthen afterwards. So Rachel's she's gonna turn this way. We're gonna start off with a basic toe touch, right? So being that she does not have pain right now, but we saw Rachel not long ago with lower back pain where this was not even a question where she would be able to do, right? When you ask someone to touch their toes, they look at you with death eyes, then you know they're flexion intolerant. But here we see good rounding patterns, right? Arms up overhead, and we're going to extend back. Now, interestingly enough, many individuals, perfect, come back up, that have flexion intolerant lower back pain, they're actually extension intolerant for a while too, meaning them coming back into this position, because when it hurts to go forward, you basically kind of live like this, right? So you're kind of walking with your butt really tight because it hurts, right? So now we've created sensitivity in all directions because the back is just locked up. And that's okay. These exercises that I'm going to show you today help you soften a lot of that tension in a very subtle way so that you don't trigger your pain and you're able to get more mobility back. What we think about oftentimes though is an individual such as describing that we're having the back pain, they're tight here. So what do we assume? Almost everyone just says, well, if your back's tight, you just need to stretch it. So many of us are doing some sort of a toe touch. Go ahead and do a toe touch. Now, this might feel good, but if you're flexion intolerant, that is a lot of flexion and a lot of load in your lower back. Oftentimes, when you come back up, it feels almost tighter or worse coming back up. Whether this is a standing toe touch, a sitting toe touch, or some form of a pigeon where you're leaning forward. Again, understanding the triggers of the pain will help you get out of pain sooner than actually putting some proactive exercises towards it because you're not picking at it anymore, okay? Now, other ways to determine the extent of flexion, I'm gonna sit here facing out. The extent of the flexion intolerance is to do some sort of a compression test. So here, Rachel's gonna be sitting up nice and tall. She's gonna grab the bottom of the stool and she's gonna pull herself into the stool. Okay, so we're creating compression in the spine, but we're in a neutral stacked spine. More times than not, this is not creating any issues. Good, relax. If you had an end plate, injury, meaning you fell from some sort of distance or took a hard landing, this might aggravate you. But what we're going to do now is tuck the lower back underneath. Good, so we're slumping in flexion. Now she's going to grab the stool and pull down. So now we're creating compression under flexion, and we're going to, again, determine if this creates any issues. Good, relax. Now, for those of you that might be having acute pain at the middle of the back, that tells us one thing, but if you get some sort of shooting pain down your legs, that tells us something else. And we'll have a separate condition video specifically tailored towards disc injuries and sciatic injuries because that's a little bit of a different beast, but it holds the same principles as we're talking about today. So it might seem a little redundant if you watch both these videos, but I guarantee both will help you out. Now, this again is just to help us determine the extent of how flexion intolerant she is and the angles and the corners that are bothering her. Now, outside of that, we're going to go to the table to look at and palpate, okay, well, she's super sensitive maybe in the lower lumbar. All of these muscles are really tight because they're guarding, but we already know that. So you're going to come see a clinician such as myself who specializes in lower back pain, not because I'm good at palpation, but because I already know the patterns that are associated with flexion intolerant, and we do this secondary to what we're going to do next. So next, Rachel's going to stand up. I tell every single one of my lower back patients, if I can help you reduce your pain without me touching you, that creates autonomy in your lower back pain, and then all you have to do is rinse and repeat when you get at home to help decrease your pain. Like compounding interest, the more you do it, the better it gets. And if you're not pissing it off, because we had the movement modifications as well, then you're going to be in a really good spot 12 hours later and a day later, if that long. Okay, so the first one is understanding how to hip hinge. So let's say, for instance, God forbid you dropped your keys and you had lower back pain. How are you going to get them, right? So Rachel's going to go a little bit lower. Soft knees, she's basically just going to hinge her butt straight back. Notice, we're getting the torso down towards the ground, but all that load is going into the hips and the hamstrings. Now, if she needs to go lower, all she does is simply bend her knees a little bit, and now we could get to the ground if needed, but come back up. More times than not, you can stand up all the way. More times than not, all you need this for is bending over to brush your teeth or wash your face or interact with someone who might be lower than you. Servers, nurses, anyone that has some sort of customer service experience where they're leaning forward, this is super helpful for them because they're constantly leaning forward, just creates so much pain and tightness in their lower back. So that's hinging. Now, this can be prophylactic in your pain. Just going through good morning exercises where you're hinging back and forth teaches your body, hey, load, I want you to go more into the hamstrings and the hips. Hey, load, stay out of lower back. Now, lower back is, so do one more. Lower back is still working here, but it's in an isolated isometric position, good, come back up, where it's a holding pattern. It's not going through flexion extension, making the soft tissue structures more sensitive. Now, next one, supported squats. We're doing this again for everything, right? So if you had a TRX or a suspension trainer, you're gonna do this. Now, all she's gonna do, depth does not matter. She's just gonna squat up and down, and she's trying to give her hands the majority of her weight. Now, what this does is it helps loosen up the hips that are oftentimes very tight from holding and guarding. This helps stretch the lower back a little bit, but more importantly, what we have found is it provides mild pumping decompression in the lower back. Hips are going this way, hands are going this way, so the spine's in the middle, and it provides just a subtle amount of decompression, overall allowing you to loosen yourself up, but more importantly, this really helps decrease a lot of the pain that you're having. Now, exercise number 3, you're gonna go on your belly. We're gonna do those hip drops. So actually, we're gonna start hands and knees. Hands come a little bit further forward. It's like an upward facing dog, but instead of being super active and prying up, all she's gonna do is shift forward and lets her hips sink down. Good, she's gonna come back up. Now, if you're super acute, you might get to there, and then you might have to come back. And then each time you're gonna try to go like a degree further, a half a millimeter further, an inch further. You're trying to inch your way up to more extension. If it hurts going forward, we're gonna go backwards to soften and work on our mobility, because we're not gonna be pissing it off. Perfect, go ahead and stand up. Now, outside of that, there's obviously many more stages into getting you back to all the activities that you wanna be able to do, and that is what's important, right? So, seeing a low back specialist such as myself here at Loud Chiropractic in Lafayette, we're gonna take you through the appropriate progressions from day one, I can't bend over and put on my socks and shoes, of understanding, okay, here's your triggers. Be mindful of your triggers. Here's some things to help you with the acute pain. After that, we're gonna help build some stability and confidence around your core. We're gonna look at mobility exercises. And from a very early on point throughout your journey, we're gonna be loading you so that you can gain more confidence in your back. If you can do hard things or lift heavy things, you're gonna have a lot more confidence in your back, and not only from your acute injury you might have now, this is especially important for all of you that are having chronic lower back pain and you're afraid to pick up your children or even a bag of dog food. So if you're tired of dealing with low back pain, stop waiting, come in and see us, and I guarantee we'll be able to help you deal with this either chronic or acute injury to get back to all the activities that you love doing.